Europe's newest radio station, Laser 558.
This is Laser 558, where the hits keep coming. Listen this week for Howard Jones.
The Panama-registered MV Communicator is the home of Radio Laser, moored 15 miles off the Essex coast in the not-deep channel of the Thames estuary. The ship is the former 490-ton Guardline Seeker, which has been fitted out in Miami, Florida, as Europe's most up-to-date offshore radio station. The station claims an audience of about 10 million listeners and programs a diet of hits and selected oldies 21 hours a day.
No, that's all wrong. I want the rooster. That's not a rooster. Much better. All Europe Radio, Laser 558. Good morning.
DJ Rick Harris presents the station's early morning show. All the records are on cartridge, and the strict music playlist compiled from European music papers forms the station's sound. But what is the station all about?
Well, it's an international radio station. We're not directed towards any one singular market or nation. And in doing that, we have to really broaden our playlist of music to appeal to people in many different nations. I think our current playlist is based on European charts mixed in with British charts. I know for a fact that our oldies are based on that. We bought research books, or chart books, in the UK and in Holland mostly, to figure out what we would be playing in the way of oldies here. In terms of age group, people who are 15 to 35 years of age, people who think of themselves as being young people. That's what I think of my audience as being when I address them. I say, young people I'm speaking with, and this is what they're thinking about doing.
This Sunday, join David Lee Stone, Rick Harris, Paul Dean, and Jesse Brandon for a nostalgic look at the 60s on Laser 558.
Sophisticated computers and satellite communication systems are an integral part of the day-to-day running of the Laser organization. A ComSat link keeps them in contact with their New York office. Computers are also used for the music compilation and news, as Jesse Brandon explains.
Well, we use that to transfer the news from our television telex system to a script that we use on the air. We also use another computer to get instructions from New York, commercial instructions and programming instructions, things like that. Eventually, that one will be used along with the satellite to get commercials audio over here. Eventually, we're supposed to get music over the computer satellite.
That means that you could, in theory, do programs in America for transmission in the UK?
Yes, but I don't think they're planning on doing that.
Good morning from All Europe Radio, Laser 558. We've got 23 minutes before the hour.
I was working at a station in California, about 40 miles north of Los Angeles, a town called Ventura, and I sent an air check tape. I just saw an ad in one of the trade magazines, a thing called Radio and Records, you know. It's a magazine they send out to all the radio stations back in the States. So I saw this ad and I sent them a tape, and out of the thousands of tapes that they got, they liked mine. So they called me up and asked me if I were married. I said no, and then they asked me if I was interested in working on a ship, and I said sure. Well, it's different. I don't really think about it that much. I'm kind of getting used to it. It's a lot of fun, really. It's an adventure, you know. It's something to write home about. There aren't too many pirate ships back in the States, so it's really different.
Laser 558.
Well, I got into radio in America about 20 years ago, in the early 60s, in a small town station where I went in and I started helping with the music. And then I learned production engineering and went on the air. And in those days it was, a lot different than it is today. And the last 20 years I've been working in all places all over the United States, San Francisco, Chicago, New York, Washington, Denver, places in Iowa, California. And I came on a plane one day and I ran into somebody I worked with in Chicago 14 years ago. And he said, hey, we're doing something in Europe, a new radio thing. Are you interested? I sat down on the plane in a seat next to Roy Lindau, who is there, does our sales in New York. And we started talking about radio and where we knew each other from, and about a few months later, he gave me a ring in France, where I was staying at the time, and he said to me, "Are you interested? We got a new radio thing going, and I'm always interested in new venture and a challenge, and especially when it's radio." And so I said, "Sure." So I came.
Laser 558.
The home of the hits.
It's quite comfortable. Everything's laid out very, very well. I think management have gone into it extremely well. As far as accommodations, they're the best I've seen on any of the offshore stations. But I think Laser is going to do to the radio setup in Britain in particular to what Caroline did and the offshore stations did in the 60s. I mean, they introduced new radio, didn't they? And new techniques. So I think Laser, given the chance, will take off and reform radio as we know it today.
Laser 558,
where you're never more than a minute away from music.
Good morning, 31 minutes past the hour. At All Europe Radio, Laser 558, broadcasting from international waters this morning. I'm Rick Harris.
The Laser format and presentation has been very successful. The You're Never More Than a Minute Away from Music on Laser 558 is a format directly imported from the US, where over 9,000 AM and FM stations are aggressively competing for their slice of the radio audience. Because of the competition in the US, the successful stations have to be tightly programmed. No unnecessary chat, phone-ins and other trivia, which is usually associated with UK radio. It's this more scientific approach which has resulted in Laser winning a huge audience in the UK and other Western European countries. Two 25-kilowatt CSI transmitters made in Florida supply Laser's signal, which the owners claim is capable of reaching 164 million people in 9 Western European countries. With lavish offices on Madison Avenue, New York, the station is hoping to capture a large slice of the international advertising revenue, which they say is not currently being catered for. But with the Marine Offences Act, which restricts UK involvement, Laser employs only people with US citizenship who are not affected by the law. The owners are therefore of the opinion that their operation is totally legal. An expensive brochure and sales literature, combined with rate cards, have been mailed to all multinational organisations with European outlets. So far, response has been slow, but the owners are confident of selling 30-second spot announcements for as little as $40 to $250 during peak time. The I Want to Communicate with You slogan has become the call sign and logo of the station, as Rick Harris explains.
It is the yellow and blue banner or signal flag used at sea indicating I want to communicate with you. On top of our ship you'll see the flag, and below it are 3 other flags which stand for 5, 5, and 8. So on top of the ship it says I want to communicate with you on 5, 5, 8. We also have an audio version of it. The flag itself stands for kilo, or K, and in Morse code that's a long, a short, and a long. So occasionally between records or on some tapes you'll hear a laser blast, and a quick one, and then a long, short, long. And that indicates we wish to communicate with you. Hopefully people out there listening wish to communicate with us.
Laser has probably eaten most into Radio 1's audience and the Southeast's ILR stations. With a growing number of new ILR stations in the pipeline and proposed cable and community projects, competition for listeners is getting tougher all the time. But where does Laser see their audience coming from?
I think for a large part we're going to be getting listeners from people who haven't listened to radio recently because there just hasn't been what they're looking for on the air. There's either too much talk or it's the type of music they're not interested in hearing. Possibly Radio 1 in Great Britain is got a large amount of the people who will seek a station such as Laser. Hilversum 3 in Holland also would have a lot of listeners that we'll be picking up.
I don't really think of myself as, or this station as trying to take away listeners from any other station, because I think there's certainly room for one more. You know, I mean, I think there's a lot of people that listen to the radio and they're not really hearing what they want to hear. They're not really getting what they want, so we're trying to fill that void.
The Laser music policy of You're Never More Than a Minute Away from Music is typical of the US hit radio format of current hits, recent hits and oldies in strict rotation, with minimal DJ chat. A lot of attention is also given to the European charts. Paul Dean explains.
Very tight. Everything swings around every 6 hours, so you're getting a tight format, which is very popular in the States.
Yeah, it's hits and oldies, really, and we like to sprinkle a nice mix. And we have our hits updated by New York by satellite, and we're even trying to find ways of making that faster so it can be more current. And we find and we think that the format is will be very successful.
All the hits, just all the hits we can play that we think people want to hear. Right now, we're just sort of playing it by ear because we don't have a lot of feedback yet, but as we get more and more feedback, we'll be able to kind of fine-tune it.
The type of music certainly is available from other stations, but the maximum music is something that we alone are doing here.
Pop hits, I guess that says it all. It's pretty much constant things that have charted very well, not too much eclectic stuff, although occasionally we stretch in different directions. It seems that we are more tightly formatted than most of the stations. Also, we have a more European appeal. We also take into account the Dutch and German charts, French charts, things like that.
All hit radio. Laser 558.
The MV communicator is moored just 1 mile from the Radio Caroline ship, which has attracted advertising from New York. Although Radio Caroline see their listeners as being older, they do not see laser as a threat. The presence of a second ship in the North Sea, however, could give the British authorities another reason to clamp down, although Steve Masters is confident that they cannot be touched.
Legally, by the point of the law of the Marine Offenses Act, if you are on a international ship in international waters, this is a Panamanian ship, and you are not a British subject or a subject of a country which subscribes to the Marine Offenses Act, to the EEC, then legally we're not pirates. And I don't consider myself a pirate. You know, I consider that we're all out here legally. Since everybody on the ship is Americans, there's now one British subject here. So I think that's very important to note. I don't think anything would happen.
I think their ideas are a little dated, really. I mean, I think it's actually standing in the way of progress. I mean, this is progress. This is, you know, life goes on. You can't have total control over everything forever. It's just not going to work.
With running costs at $100,000 per month, the laser organization needs to sell a substantial amount of advertising to keep going and to repay its original investment. The expensive brochure is full of facts and figures to substantiate their claims. The station has had good press in the UK and Europe, and awareness of the station is also good. But have they got their marketing concept right? Time will tell. Admittedly, there are many international companies who could benefit on a global scale, and the advertising rates are very competitive. But the general doubt is that advertisers would usually negotiate to advertise on radio at a local level, not via a US-based parent company or subsidiary. The future of laser could depend on this ability to bring some heavyweight clients on air. But those on board are confident that contracts will arrive after a period of establishing themselves.
Well, we've been promised, and at least the feedback we've been getting from our directors in New York, that if we can prove ourselves and certainly stay on the air up to 45 days, I think it is, the advertising will come fast and thick. Some of the big ones that have been mentioned, have promised to invest money left, right, and centre, because it's a different avenue for them to get into the European market.
As I understand it, they've signed a couple of contracts that are contingent upon our staying on the air for a certain period of time and, seeing how we do. And I think from what I've heard from the people that I've talked to, I think there's a lot of possibilities that we'll get a lot of business. There's not many other places that an advertiser can go over here, if you want to buy radio time.
All Europe Radio, Laser 558.
Laser 558.
The future of laser will obviously depend on the amount of advertising the station can achieve over the next few months. But one thing is certain, The station has attracted a large audience both in the UK and Europe and given most UK radio stations in the southeast some hard competition. The ship itself is small, although compact and comfortable. It has a full complement of crew, transmitter engineer and a captain. Tenders have officially brought some supplies up from Spain, and generally things are very well run, as Rick Harris explains.
We have about 10 people on the ship, and we actually get on quite nicely. It's surprising. It's sort of like communal living. We have to share cooking facilities and washing facilities, and of course we don't have a lot of company on board the ship other than each other. And though we do come from different backgrounds, and many of us have very different beliefs about radio and life in general, we have to get on with each other. We all realize that. We have the maturity to get on okay.
Well, I work from 9 at night till 1 in the morning, doing the night shift, the Steve Masters hit program. And then I get off at 1. We sign off at 1 o'clock. And I usually go have some eggs or something, and a few drinks, maybe, you know, soda, of course. And then we maybe play some chess or something, do some production, dub some music. And then do 3 or 4 o'clock, I go to bed. And I get up in the late morning, early afternoon, go out on deck, lay out in the sun. We do some more production work, make some carts, whatever we have to do logs, type on the computer, write letters home. And then by that time we have dinner, you know, and meanwhile through the day we fix our own food and fix our own lunch if we want any, and soup and sandwiches or whatever. We eat a lot of peanut butter and jelly out here too. And then at night we have dinner, and then after dinner I go on the air.
Food is excellent. We eat like kings out here. Beef every day, right, lads? No, we're fed very, very well indeed. Of course, being Americans, we go heavy on the steaks. And fish, yes, fish comes in every day.
One thing I've learned about living on a radio ship is you can't count on anything. You don't know what's going to happen until it actually does. I've been told I'll be here for 6 weeks, and I'll have 2 weeks of holiday time. However, I don't really expect that to happen. I'll probably be here quite a few weeks. And I don't mind too much. Living on the ship is actually quite nice. There's not too many hassles. You don't have to cook. You don't have to do your own washing. You don't have to clean up the dishes. You just do my show, occasionally help out on the deck, and there's not much more expected of me.
You feel like you just want to jump off and try to swim for it, you know? But I think that the length of time on the ship that we spend, right now we're spending 6 weeks on and 2 weeks off, the length of time that we spend on this ship will change and will get shorter as more people come out. In fact, there's some relief people due in the next week or so. And a couple people are going to get off. And when that happens, then, you know, you'll come back and you feel more refreshed and you feel better about everything. And then they'll be able to maybe reduce the amount of time, so it gets a lot less boring. And that is the thing, being cut off from the people that you are close to. That's, I think, is really a major, you got to get it up here. And it's very hard if you're a land person, you know, a landlubber, as they say. And then when you go on land, it's hard to believe you're there. You want to kiss the soil and say, God, land, you know, I can run around, you know, people. And I guess that's another thing about it, is the social aspect, you know. There's not really the restaurants or people or clubs or sounds or... you're kind of cut off from that. But you just have to get used to that again in your head.
One of the nicest things about living on the ship is there are no expenses. I don't have to pay for my food. I don't have to pay for rent. And there are no transportation costs either. So I'm developing quite a nice bank account that I can blow when I go back on shore for 2 weeks. Can you imagine that? Having 2 weeks to spend 8 weeks of earning.
We've got a great team. Everybody's professional. Everybody's worked in commercial radio in the United States. A lot of people have done production work, too, and announcing. People have appeared in different clubs and things like that. And they're all real professional. Of course, there's just frictions anywhere, especially when you're caught on a ship like this with, you know, 10 or 11 people in close quarters that live and work together. I mean, all the time. Most people, I mean, you get up in the morning, probably you go to work and you come home at night. I get up in the morning, I walk up the stairs, and I'm at work, you know? And at night when I walk down the stairs, I'm still at work. So it makes a big difference. So, I mean, especially when we all started out as strangers, pretty much, except for 2 or 3 of them. All right, that's about it. Yeah, I think it's okay.
For so many stations back in the States, you know, everything is pre-programmed. You have no choice. They tell you what to say, when to say it, what to play, when to play it, et cetera, et cetera. But over here, it's a little more relaxed because there's not that much competition. So you can get away with a lot more, and you can be yourself more, you know, and so it's more enjoyable for that reason.
But tell us what it's like being the only female on a ship with presumably 10 or 15 people on.
Now, how did I know you were going to ask that?
Because everybody's asked you that.
It's not that different. We all know each other so well. It's just like we're a family. I've lived in co-ed houses for almost my entire adult life, and I think most of the other people have as well for a lot of their time. So it's just not an issue at all. There's another woman coming soon as well, so I'm looking forward to that.
Do you find because you're a woman you get asked to do maybe darning socks and things like that, or not?
No, that comes under the well, darning socks, and so I get asked for my needle and thread upon occasion, but as far as housework and whatnot goes, that's part of the seaman side of things, and they have somebody assigned as steward.
We were going to communicate with them out there too, you know.
Hopefully it'll last a long time, and I think it will. I know that you know, we're trying our best to do all the right things, play all the right music, and please as many listeners as we can. And I think it'll be around for a while. I certainly hope so.
Do you have a Laser 558 button on your car radio? Well, then here's how you can make one. First, tune your car radio to 558 kilohertz. That's 538 meters medium wave. Then put your finger under the first button, lift up, and pull the button towards you until you feel it click. Then push the button in, and it's set. You have a Laser 558 button right at the first spot on your radio dial. Use it often.
You've got Laser 558. It is 11 o'clock in Britain. 12 o'clock Continental Time. Duran Duran Wild Boys just around the corner.
From the MV Communicator in international waters, we are Laser 558, owned by URAD SA. This is free radio with non-stop hit music, practicing good programming and technical standards.
Laser 558.
Hit radio Laser 558.
Laser 558.
Where the hits keep coming.
All Europe Radio Laser 558.